No, you do that. We should have been.
It's the middle of the day. I'm at work.
Oh, right.
I know that's your morning.
That's a
What are you
fair
talking
point.
about?
That's usually
I'm good.
he asking for actually this.
How's your,
That's good.
later about your trip?
Found my wedding band in the basement.
A lot more transit pictures.
Had some tourists going on.
I rode TFL. I rode Plymouth Transit.
Start looking at houses. Yeah, this would be great.
Not yet. Not yet.
What's the password? Do you know?
Oh,
Sorry. Can we use your phone number? Use the same phone number again.
571.
214.
Yeah, we definitely should.
So,
Next time they do
47.
that. Or even with them, let me on.
So no big snow.
Definitely. I heard you were a little concerned. I said it's gonna hit tomorrow. They acted like we were gonna get a big.
Oh, they forecasted
and
12 inches.
and then,
I was all excited.
Wait, no, it's- Oh, yes, that's the way. 48397.
Not here, but I got
Utah.
You take a little extra time.
Oh, well, I mean, it's just a motion to dismiss. I'm not, I don't have to.
Oh, you don't, oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
Oh, you said you, I thought you actually go on the road.
interesting.
What about Memphis? You think so?
That's the one that's
Okay. Okay.
That's called. That's how you can set up the one later on.
Okay. But right now, it's just gonna open with that. If I power it on, it's.
You see
Yes.
the ring?
Okay.
Open without address.
So the password is needed for just that I have an account.
No, you can set up password for me to put the bank.
Okay, you had me, but I set up a password when we.
That is for the iCloud.
Like, there's no.
Like we have your email account, right? Like when you sign on your Android phone, if you got one of those Play Store, you need to sign on Gmail account. It allows your own Play Store, right? Discounts,
Good to
you
know.
open out
But
on
Nashville.
Apple.
Yeah, yeah,
Sign on
Nashville's
Apple.
nice.
Oh, so I could put apps on it.
Yeah,
That's right.
Oh, okay, okay.
solid
Bit
place.
of a level.
I have to allow this one. This is how.
I'm hearing.
This is how.
Where were you?
Now we need to get.
That's one muscle shoulder.
Yeah.
Oh,
we-
yeah.
Is
Oh, flew into like Birmingham and drove 2 hours across the state.
Isn't that? Hey, Leonard Skinner.
Maybe, yes.
I think there's a big recording studio, Muscle Shorts studios.
Okay.
Yeah. Where was it? Because I mean, there was also the Civil War. battle.
I mean, that is the logo. That's the icon for it. I
Oh, okay.
mean, yeah,
That's
yeah,
one,
that's,
okay.
yeah.
So here it's going to be. It's fast to
So long.
I mean, like, elevators. It's just like cheese. Just. Wow. It's where FedEx is. That's like the other side.
Okay.
the time requirement.
Yeah.
Just reset the password.
You're going down ways.
Yes.
Okay.
So you have your double authentication with your. Now you can sign in.
Okay, my boardable.
Really?
Yeah, Casper's getting.
Right now.
Because I have a couple of buddies who are going. I
I
mean, one of them lives there.
Like when you're looking at an individual file.
What's that?
No, I don't mean that.
Oh.
You going there. I'm so jealous.
Really hates birds.
No, I mean, anything, but I'm just jealous.
Well, this just opened.
I don't know,
this
I'm
way.
kind of underwise.
Oh, the-
Yeah, I think I have it.
Trying to figure out everything tomorrow.
So I haven't had
Yeah.
time to in a while.
Yeah, so, but it
Maybe
would be a
mine
quick,
is each of the seat.
little, this one guy.
That's also happy.
I'm hoping it's better, yeah, don't worry, I'm just hoping it's better snow than the last time. It's just awful.
No, he did, so did you work on Monday?
Yeah.
I was supposed to be holiday, but
Christmas and.
Christmas and Thanksgiving. I mean,
July.
that's to the point. of
Well, I just want to make sure I can
literally
get into board.
Just to go and hang out, of course, to see him, but I'm not, it's not like a normal, it's not like. city or something, you know, it's, It's gonna be.
He, of course, worked for the company, all those holidays. So it's September.
So well.
They don't tell you those things when you're in law school picking.
Other
career. I would have gone to work for the government. They make, you know.
Lost at
Yeah.
Plymouth.
Yeah.
Last weekend?
That
Close it all down.
I was there, it counts.
Were you there?
Yeah.
You sucked. You got pictures?
No, Plymouth.
You're actually Plymouth?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't think I've ever met a Plymouth. Wow.
You'll enjoy this one.
Are
This
you a
is-
Liverpool person? Cause I
Yeah.
am.
Plymouth.
Yeah, I've never met a Plymouth fan.
There you go.
Have you ever?
Who were they not playing?
Koza was there. No, Solid Horse Chapel.
Friend is Bournemouth.
We got to go down on the pitch afterwards. There's also the dugout with the chairman. Simon Hallett. Just friends who have friends.
And I have to ask, are they in the championship? What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, they're in second place.
One spot above.
I was gonna say,
the
ask me again in 3 months if they're in the championship.
I mean, my real team is Millwall.
Oh, wait, they're gonna go down?
suck, Yeah.
Big one, Don Steele's.
I don't know if Jesse might come up or go down.
The second to last.
Oh, that's not good.
If you don't,
And we played
we can
at
just give it to
the
you, you can
last
set it up on your own.
today.
It's just a box.
Oh, that is
Uh,
cool.
Well,
You're gonna have to tell me something with it. Just register for an iPhone.
Yeah.
Last season.
And now they're literally last.
I like
Great. Yeah.
And we just got promoted to the championship. Last season was our first
Oh
season
my
back in the
God.
championship. So I also went to the first home league match.
Pretty straightforward. You wanna just take it and then.
Cool.
just have you shot it.
That'll really keep you tired.
Yeah. How'd they do?
So you wanna just give her the iPad and then
One of my friends.
we'll get the meeting started then she can.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's very cool.
Awesome.
So
That's
there's
awesome.
a US.
Are you an
league.
investor? Oh, that's awesome.
You are
That's
too?
very cool.
They beat Liverpool.
Apologize for the delay. I think we're ready. I was getting a new iPad so I can follow on a portable here. And not very tech savvy, so. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Let's call the roll.
Chair Kaplan.
Here.
Vice Chair Kleist. Harish Gunter.
Here.
Matt Harris.
Present.
Praveen Kappa.
Here.
Jesse O'Connell.
Here.
Hillary Orr. Kirsten Phelps. Kendall Taylor.
Here.
Ajaysha Thomas. Arthur Wicks.
Here.
Chair Kaplan, you have a quorum. Those absent are Vice Chair Kleist and Kirsten Phelps.
My understanding is Steve will join us around 7 o'clock tonight. Josh, was that what he had said?
I think he's gonna try to sign on. He's in a different time zone maybe and working. Wasn't quite clear. I didn't take good notes last night during the shuffle.
And Kirsten, I think, she's coming from DC, so she'll be joining us a little late. Our first order of business is to convene an executive session, and so we have the motion is on the screen. If someone would like to go ahead and read it.
Happy to. I, Jesse O'Connell, move that the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing legal and personnel matters pursuant to section 2.2-3711 A1 and A2 of the Code of Virginia.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Reach. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, no abstentions. Okay. We are in executive session.
All right, so give me like 3 minutes to switch your Zoom for you and you'll be good to go. Yes, I'm gonna get her on the other.
This will be sort of a two-part Zoom. The first one is about something that's already been resolved, and the other is about something new. And the attorney that handles the first one will be zooming in.
There we go. Maybe while we wait,
We don't wanna be here.
Using PPL.
Josh and Jeff, you stay for some time.
They let you use it?
They changed the policy.
Yeah, we just wanted just to observe that. Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything else that, you know, because our former general
Really
counsel
weird.
was asked us to do some training.
PPL.
Yeah.
Within 6 months.
You all wanna leave now and stop.
I thought they changed it to a year.
Except for you all.
It used to be like 3 months, and I was like, that's more than
We're
makes
gonna,
sense.
yeah.
I even like, that day.
I think it's, maybe you want to say for the
They wouldn't budge
certification
on it.
session.
So I used
Yeah, no, I think that's good.
PPL,
Certainly, I know you
Now,
get all
it's
work done.
like sick annual leave after that, but
But I'm surprised they're letting you use sick.
I mean, it might be work.
Yeah, we got.
They changed it.
This time, so.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I appreciate
You're
your
caring
even-
for
judicious of our.
Even after I had the baby, I would probably use sick.
They
That's
changed, they revised it after a couple of years. and they realized-
Edward or Jordan or someone, can you confirm you can hear us, please? Sorry. Edward, speak up, say something.
Mine didn't change it.
Can you hear me?
Yes, okay,
Yeah, we can hear you.
okay,
And then
thanks.
have a mess of leave that I have to figure out how to spend.
No, in fact, I don't think we're getting.
I'm gonna come out of, be like.
You didn't get it. Oh,
No, we
okay.
haven't actually.
I mean, it's like a dusted here.
Maybe
I'm
just we'll take it.
kind of just, I'm a skier. I'm
Oh.
going out to West Virginia this week.
I'm at the top of their.
So, your conflict of interest in the period to keep up. Plus, do you get SCG?
No, I'm still, so I'm at, gonna be at like 156, I have to get down to like 120.
So Lawrence at one point was like, they're talking about like doing something with the comp, and we cashed ours out, because we didn't want them to be like, you have to take it all, or like we can't. And so I cashed mine out and I redid and I finished my basic. Like, I was like, that's what I got Nathan to do, I'm like, I'm cashing it out, I'm spending this in the basic. But I was trying to hold on to it. I was at the 140. For security. I don't know, they're talking about. And then I never heard it.
Every year I struggle.
Me too, I was there for like 2 years after I had Ivy, because I took extra, and now I'm right back at it.
Hopefully you have a like standing room.
SCG's an extra 2
Morgan's not the guy to relate to. Years of years of.
It's really clean.
This one, when you have it all.
He's pretty good. He's pretty good about that.
I just signed up for summer camp, and I'm like, excuse me, my day, I'm on just like an hour every day.
Why not they can go around?
But they just.
We're due to play. It's a good place to be. That's one of the only ways. We have like one of
The scooters.
Our problem is, I can't, I've got too much to do, so Nathan ends up taking mine, but he doesn't barely as much time. as I do. He's always on the phone, trying to save his time.
I mean, they have.
So we're gonna. They're sick.
Teams in a row.
Who was the last one?
I don't want to keep one in the meeting, but.
Thank you
And
very
like
much.
such a good age.
Thanks for your help getting this done. And
I
so.
feel like women end up going back to work, right, when the baby's like talking fun, and like start smiling.
Oh, it's really charge each of the hours.
It's funny, we won that
Springtime, you
away.
get to like do stroller walks.
Week games away.
Yeah.
We have not.
You have track, so it's a little more energy, FA Cup, probably like fire.
And it was without it.
Quickly and then fires running.
You got it
We
started.
do it, does it have any overlap?
And I was
Well, intentionally, because, you know.
saying, what are USB-C now?
Oh, the white one.
Daycare is expensive.
Okay. Is this your first child? Yeah. See how cool.
Send them back to these.
White one for this, black one for that, but they like.
They can be
Okay.
the same as power.
It's,
Oh, how do you turn it
we
off?
paid,
I
So what do they do? They like pay out?
we had a cheap guy.
I'll leave it on now, but.
We were paying $700. I mean, it's a value
Oh,
play.
okay.
I mean.
Oh, down there, okay. Oh,
We turn it off. Also, one later on, you can.
Basically, there's more.
I can understand.
There's more billionaires that attract these courts.
I was like, yes, you can. I mean, the rest of it. Just to make it easier.
There were other places that looked like. So just getting the promotion.
They were like $3 grand a month.
Remember the market will
Now
bear,
it's a
I
question.
guess.
What does it
Then
take?
how do I get back? You don't wanna put your child in a
And the
place that's
last
not.
season.
We're gonna take care of you.
No, that's what I mean.
Okay.
One goal.
Oh, I see. Okay, I just had to, I just had to slide.
Now, until
And
last
this
week,
is
we're like the odds
like
on favorite.
It gets cheaper as they get like over which is.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Although, like,
question
we had.
now is
you know,
like,
For this new coach, we have a new investment.
Oh, I see.
When they went to
Can
like,
we pay?
There's also sort of, you know how you're private, and then you can change between the screens.
Oh, okay.
It's just her. Stay up.
Like, oh, yes.
Where is Plymouth?
Yeah, yeah, it's just close to mine.
It's like-
Yeah.
I
got laptops.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was a single mom when I went to law school with two
So
boys.
this is-
They were
yeah.
I'll ask Beth to send
three
it.
and
Okay,
five.
thanks.
And I had them at a neighbor for the first 2
There you go.
years. And then the last year I took
So,
them
but across Devon,
daycare place.
Exeter is like a third or fourth tier team.
It was cheaper.
There's like one
And I
town.
wish, I went to pick them up one time and they said, we're not ready to go.
True, that has like maybe a.
Whereas the neighbor did, I think what you
So
did was just,
it's like.
she didn't have any part or anything for
Southwest
them.
England.
She was just.
How much do you? Oh, okay, great. Okay, thanks.
Rounding error.
All right.
I want to be a rounding error.
My children
For
are
a football
probably
club,
third.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and reconvene. Josh, everyone on that we need to get them through the Zoom or we're live.
You live?
Yep. Okay.
You just need to do the motion.
All right, so we have first is a motion to exit the session and then we'll certify and then we will establish the subcommittee as discussed in the session. So we'll go through them in order. Is there a motion to exit executive session?
I, Jesse O'Connell, move to reconvene the public meeting of the Alexandria Transit Company Board of
It
Directors.
has been moved. Is there a second? Second by Harish. All in favor? Aye.
I, Jesse O'Connell, move to certify that pursuant to section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters that were identified in the motion by which the executive session was convened and that are lawfully exempted by the Freedom of Information Act from the Act's open meeting requirements were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during the executive session.
It has been moved. Is there a second? Second. Harish, all in favor?
Aye.
And we won't have this in the instructions, but we just need a motion that says whoever votes to establish the subcommittee per the motion that was discussed in the executive session. Well, I may not be saying it artfully, but that we established a subcommittee during the executive session. We just need a motion basically to establish the subcommittee that was per the discussion in the executive session.
I move to establish the subcommittee as discussed in executive session.
All right, it's moved by Matt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Jesse, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and we're not adjourning, so we don't have to do the last motion. So now we're gonna get into our meeting. Thank you all for your patience tonight while we had some business to take care of, and we're glad that you're able to join us. We move into our public comment period. We have a statement that we read when we go into public comment, but just in the interest of time, I'll ask if there are any speakers who have pre-registered for public comment.
Yes, Nathaniel Cartagena.
Okay, and so I'm gonna go ahead and read the motion and then we'll recognize.
He's the new chair of your BAC.
Well, Nathaniel, it's very nice to meet you. I want to, before I read, I just want to thank you. There was a letter included in our packet that went to the city manager, summarizing your advocacy. That may be what you're going to be talking about with us tonight, but really appreciate that effort to get that done at this time of year when our city leaders need to know Dash's needs. So, but I will, since this is your first time speaking, I'll read our statement, and then you can come up to the podium like we're about to convene at the public comment period of our meeting. All Dash board meetings include a public comment period at the beginning of the meeting, as we believe it is crucial for us to hear from our riders and community members. The board is here to listen. However, please keep in mind that public comment period is not designed to be a discussion. Accordingly, please do not expect the board to respond to your concerns or questions tonight. We take any concerns and questions seriously, need sufficient time to process and research any issues if need be. Board members will respond to your questions and concerns at a future meeting or have the proper staff member get back to you at the appropriate time. Please note that personnel matters are not part of the public comment period. However, please know we take any personnel questions seriously. You're asked to contact the Dash administration with any such concerns. We ask that all speakers and members of the audience maintain civility and respect for divergent views that others possess. Further, we ask that speakers please address their comments to the board directly rather than the audience. The board will take pre-registered speakers first, then I will invite others who wish to speak who may not have pre-registered. For future meetings, you may pre-register on the website dashbuzz.com on the board of directors page. I will now call the first speaker. Please remember each individual speaker is allotted 3 minutes for your comments. If you're speaking on behalf of a neighborhood civic association or unit owners association, please identify yourself accordingly. Be recognized for 5 minutes. You are recognized.
Oh, there's no, you could, we just got the open mic on. You're good. Yeah, go for it.
Hey, thank you very much to the dashboard. I'm Nathaniel Cartagena. I'm the new chair of the Dash Advisory Committee. I just took on this role very recently. I've been working to make the most of that opportunity and really make our ridership and our perspective heard, not only to the Dash professional staff, but around their community. Most recently, we did send a letter to the city manager, basically recommending and advocating for additional funding for the 32, 34, and 31. I just wanted to voice that advocacy here. In addition, I have a personal anecdote that I wanted to share that is maybe shows kind of the love and care I have for Dash, as well as a recent disappointing experience with Dash. A couple of my friends came to visit me from out of state, and they were recently engaged, and I wanted to take them out to celebrate their engagement. I told them, let's ride the Dash. It's the best bus line. It's the best you can get. We walked to the spot where you get picked up for the 34, which is one of the bus lines that we've been advocating funding for here. There was no bus, it did not arrive. The next bus was, because of the infrequent line, was over 45 minutes later. As you might imagine, that caused us not to be able to make our reservation. We ultimately had to call a car. Pretty disappointing for myself and for my guests. I think we're all advocates for reducing traffic, using public transit where it is, and especially using the Dash, which generally is sort of the best you can get for riding a bus. So just wanted to share these comments and this feedback about my experience with the Dash, as well as our advocacy. Thank you.
We welcome you to the DAC and appreciate your advocacy. I want to make sure that was this reported to customer service, so someone has the details on that particular bus, just so we internally they can investigate what.
I've not, but I can do that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we appreciate that, because that way, if there was an issue that they don't know about in administration, that's yeah. It's not bad. Are there any? Is that our only speaker?
No,
No.
there's someone that registered online, Tracy Robertson.
Okay, Ms. Robertson, if you're there, we'll allow you to unmute.
I don't see a Tracy Robertson listed. If anybody online wants to speak, they need to use the raise hand feature.
Okay, so we'll do that we'll ask first in the room, is there anyone who didn't sign up that wishes to speak tonight? If not, online, as Josh said, please use the raise hand feature. We'll pause for a few seconds to give you an opportunity to do that if you want to be recognized. All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment.
Your time.
I'm sorry, I lost my agenda. It's open the camera.
Oh, it's.
Do I have to? Take me a while to get. Okay. Oh, thank you. All right, chair's report. I just wanted to make, well, first I was gonna recognize the DAC for their letter and appreciate that our chair is here for that. But kind of in the vein of we're moving into budget season and kind of budget advocacy, I had shared with Josh, and I know I'm not, actually, I think the other two who are in this situation are not here tonight, but I'm a federal employee. It's been a rough month for us, and it's gonna be rough for a long time. I'm dealing with a lot of just kind of changes to my commute, to my work schedule, and just I work in HR, so a lot of in benefits in particular. So I'm just helping a lot of people who are making decisions about their next chapter. But to that end, Dash needs to have advocacy and needs to have kind of the attention that that it needs from our board, and we need to be present where we need to be present. So just as my schedule is changing somewhat and kind of in flux, I had said to Josh, I want to make sure we're using all of you to help us when we need to do budget advocacy and to be present if there's a need to meet with council members or to meet with community members. Because, you know, in the past, I think they would sort of look and say, okay, can David go to this? And, you know, and a lot of our council members sort of kind of know my story and know kind of how I approach advocate for Dash. But all of you are connected to different communities within Dash, different within the city, different neighborhoods and stakeholders. And I think having a broader perspective and other people to tell that story when I can't be there is helpful for that. And I just would say that we may be looking for volunteers as there are opportunities. Maybe this will be a really easy budget cycle, but if it's not, I don't want us to miss out because, you know, David is in DC 5 days a week, you know, and can't make meetings I used to be able to take on my lunch break or with a little bit of annual leave. So I just kind of put that out there, and I hope that, you know, you all, I think that could be a positive coming out of it, because I know as a board member where I was chair, I, you know, looked for opportunities where I could kind of be part of advocating for Dash, and doesn't always have to be the chair. So thank you for that. And also just thank you for your patience with me in the coming months, because it's a wild ride right now, and I'll just leave it at that. Hillary for TNS report.
So if anybody has any questions about the report that's in the packet, please feel free to ask. We submitted a couple grants that you all had previously heard about. So I don't think I need to get into those. We just noted that the 200 block of King Street is going to be reopened / closed to traffic in March for phase 2 of that project. And then we are kicking off a couple projects. In the packet, we noted the Edsel Road and Yoakum Parkway improvements. But we're also going to be kicking off one that is not in the packet. You might see in e-news soon for Braddock Road, looking at some improvements kind of between the Metro and Russell Road, looking at improvements for all modes, but we know there's a lot of transit stops there. There's a lot of people kind of biking between the two different trails, or biking or walking to the Metro. So there could definitely be some improvements, but there's definitely Dash stops along that corridor as well. So keep your eye out for that, and please provide feedback. One other thing that was not in my packet that I just want to share, because I feel like it was very neat. I think it was 2 weeks ago, I went down to Peachtree Corners outside of Atlanta, and I got to spend a couple days doing kind of a city transportation leadership forum. But we got to, like, schools calling. Is everybody's phone ringing now?
It's a classic announcement, not announcing anything. It's telling us that we'll announce something in the future.
Oh,
Great,
yeah.
great.
I thought it was
Love those. So this is a kind of a newer, it's a newer city, but they have a place that's called the Curiosity Lab, and it's an innovation center. And so our forum was actually at the innovation center, which is kind of co-run by the city and private partners. They do a lot of autonomous vehicle testing there. So we got to ride autonomous shuttles, which was really cool. But a lot of the shuttles that they have are all ADA accessible. So they're like looking at using them for paratransit type operations, microtransit stuff. And there were a number of other folks that weren't at the testing at the Curiosity Lab, but that are doing different types of automated vehicle work. And so we got to hear from them, and it's just really neat. And my big takeaway was that I don't think I realized how prevalent autonomous vehicles were in some other cities. I knew they were there and they existed, but I didn't realize, like in San Francisco, that they've surpassed Lyft for trips. I was with a guy who works from San Francisco. He was like, oh yeah, I look at my app, I've taken 64 trips. Like, I just didn't realize they were that prevalent. And so it's something we all need to be thinking about. They're coming. DC is gonna be doing testing with, I think Waymo, and maybe some other companies, so you'll start seeing them around. But it was very cool to get to ride them and see how they're being used, to expand on transit operations in some other cities, so just wanted to share that. Any questions about the other board notes before I go into the Sanger app, which is my second item?
Just, you know, when the shuttle was created between the Mark Center Transit Station and the Del Pepper Center, I remember Josh saying, you know, that would be a great future opportunity for autonomous vehicles. Is that the city might be able to get a grant or to pilot?
Me.
Okay, all right. I didn't know if that was something, I assumed that TNS, I know that's not your operation, that's you, because that's DCHS, right? Or what's that?
General Services
Oh, General
actually
Services, okay,
operates that.
but I wondered if that might be a good way to, because it's such a short route.
Maybe.
So, okay.
It's on our radar.
Cool.
So then the other item that was on our list is, it's a letter of support. So Sanger Avenue, I don't know how familiar you are with this road on the west end. This is it's a 4-lane road, and then there's parking along Sanger Avenue, but in the peak hours, there's no parking. So it's 4 lanes of traffic. And this is, it's one of our high crash corridors. There's a number of recommendations in our Alexandria mobility plan. The Alex West plan had recommendations for this corridor. There's safe routes to school and West End Transitway recommendations on the corridor. The West End Transitway actually will take Sanger Avenue. So because the community has reached out about this a number of times, our team looked at the corridor and it's actually, it got a bunch of feedback, did pop-ups, talked to the folks that live there, and they are making a recommendation to the traffic and parking board to actually put that parking in all the time. What's happening is during the peak hours, there's inevitably somebody who didn't move their car, and so the road is effectively acting as just 2 lanes anyway. It's one of our highest citation corridors in the city. So in looking at this corridor, there's also a lot of kids that live over here. There's not a lot of pedestrian crossing, so we are proposing to add in more crosswalks, putting in some painted curb extensions so the crosswalks are more visible, having that parking all the time, and having the road just 2 lanes, so to help reduce the speeding and improve the safety and walkability of this neighborhood. So if you want to go to the next slide, Josh, I think there's a kind of a picture of what it would look like at some of the intersections, which are more like driveways actually going to the apartment complexes. At the main intersections at Beauregard and Van Doren, you would still have all the turn lanes, so you're maintaining the capacity for vehicles, but it also opens up potential for having the buses have a smoother flow when the West End Transitway ends up taking this route. So we are taking this to the Traffic and Parking Board this month. In the summer, we're going to be resurfacing Sanger, so we want to do the improvements when we resurface the road, and also in coordination with some improvements that are part of the William Ramsey Safe Routes to School project. So just on the other side of Beauregard, but also on Sanger, we'll repave the road and do all the construction work at the same time if this gets approved by the Traffic and Parking Board. So we were asking the dashboard if they wanted to provide a letter of support for this project.
And the letter was included in our packet. Any questions on the letter as it was presented? And this is, you know, the letter mentions several hundred passengers on line 35, which is our busiest line. So, you know, important street to focus on, as well as the future West End Transit Connect. Is there a motion to approve the letter? So moved by Matt. Is there a second? Second, Jesse. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We always allow time for other board members, as you serve on boards and commissions and groups that are may be working on things that are important for Dash and for transit. So I'll pause to see if there's anyone, if there's anything they'd like to report to the group. If not, then we will
Just,
no,
just a report that the city manager proposes his budget next Tuesday, which will include funding for Dash. So stay tuned. alexandriava.gov/budget. You can see the whole calendar. It'll be updated soon with the topics for the work sessions. They're working that out a bit, but the first few are set. So Next Wednesday is on the capital improvement program, and the following Wednesday, March 5th, is on a joint city schools meeting. So it's kind of your 2-week preview, and then by then they'll probably have it hashed out what the remaining work sessions will specifically cover. And there's public hearings in there and all that too, so.
And we'll of course, be thinking about any advocacy that we need to.
I want to just tag on to that. March 11th, we'll introduce the property tax ordinance, and that's the night that they'll set the maximum tax rate.
Anybody else? All right, we move into our regular business items. We have the meeting minutes for the January meeting, which was virtual. They were included in our packet. Are there any corrections or amendments to the minutes as they were presented? If not, is there a motion to approve minutes? So moved made by Matt, is there a second? Second. Harish, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Passes unanimously. We now have our review of the financials, which were included in our packet. Are there any questions for management about the financials? If not, we'll move into staff reports. So turn over to Josh.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair, members. I'm just gonna recap a few things that are in your packet briefly to let you know that we are actively working with ACPS and the city to try to find ways that we can be a partner in solutions to people transportation. There is actually a subcommittee, city school board subcommittee next Monday that we'll be presenting at. Martin will be talking about our current services and some of the things we do to move students today and how we can potentially be a partner in the future. There's still going to be many more meetings of that group, but I will keep the board informed as we progress. As you all know, the inauguration, we were geared up to really support DC and be a partner to move a lot of people for the inauguration, which was eventually moved indoors due to extreme cold. Those shuttles were canceled. I did include in your packet information that we were reimbursed for the expenses that we had incurred and our pay requirements for our workforce who had signed up to do those shuttles. Even though DDOT had canceled the shuttles, they worked with us and did reimburse us for our costs. So we were happy to do that. We did not walk away having lost money on the work that we had done leading up to that.
And Josh, I know that I should have asked this question when we were on the financials. Is that the variance in the charter revenue that's reflected in the financials?
Don't think so. Again, I think the charter revenue is very much a timing matter, and we don't do a lot during the winter. It really picks up in the spring.
Okay.
And a lot of our stuff is straight line in the budget, so that's probably part of what you're seeing too. Dash for Good, we were really pleased to have hosted our first ever Winter Wonderland and Dash Holiday Market. Kudos to Camilla and the team for helping to put that together. We raised a total of $959 with $319 approximately going to each charity. We supported Alive, Carpenter Shelter, and Casa Chiralaga. And there was a picture included in the board packet of the presentation that was done here to those entities. This is a change from where we had previously done Stuff the Bus and those kinds of things. We had gotten feedback, I think, in part that this was really the more beneficial way to support those organizations as opposed to collecting the food items. So we're happy to be able to support that. As alluded to earlier, there's been a lot going on with the new administration on the federal level, and we have been tracking very closely issues surrounding grants that have been previously awarded to Dash. There's a short synopsis provided in your packet. At this point, we don't have any reason to believe that we are not going to be able to access those funds. In fact, we have started to incur some expenses against that. We are very tuned in with the city's lobbyists and the city's teams that have been meeting about this. Ray is, I think he's online if there are specific questions around this, but he's tracking this very closely. So current grants, 24 million basically in low-no funding is what we're watching and we're very concerned about. We want to make sure that we still have access to that money because that has a major role in our electrification projects. I will say though that we have been given feedback that it's pretty much impossible that we're going to get future applications for low-no funded. So we are pivoting our applications for future federal grants specific to the facility, which is actually something we were already working on in the bus and bus facilities arena, and really focusing that on infrastructure and state of good repair, and making sure that we're supporting the facility. We've talked about this before, I won't rehash things related to the parking deck and various other matters involving the facility. We're continuing to pursue state funds to partner with that. The city is putting money in as well. But I don't have anything to say other than to say that every day it changes and we're on it as best we can. If we get something definitive that changes, I will let you know. Right now, the only thing that's definitive is forget about getting Lono for future applications. That said, we weren't really banking on Lono in the next couple of years because you don't typically get those discretionary awards year over year. So that won't necessarily be different, but it does mean that we are potentially going to have to change or rethink our electrification timeline throughout the course of this administration until something changes. But we'll keep you posted.
Josh, can I understand, our city folks who are here, I mean, obviously this, the change effects of grants affects more than just Dash, kind of, is there going to be a large conversation part of the CIP about how, you know, the kinds of grants and how is the city kind of approaching this kind of holistically? Because obviously that may require more local support for Dash to meet our state of good repair.
I mean, I can't speak for OB. What we've done in the past month is really trying to identify an inventory. We, on the general fund side, we have very, very little federal funding support. It's almost entirely from federal prisoner per diem. We have shared with a lot of people it's called the SEPA, the Statement of Expenditures from Federal Awards. It's in the back of our ACFR to get a sense of where is our federal funding coming from? What are we using it for from the program perspective? So that's been the role that finance has played of just helping people understand where's the money coming from and what is it being used for at this time? I'm not sure about.
Yeah, so I'm sure Tuesday night there will be some level of discussion about kind of process and philosophy around this year about what we're doing about grants. Specifically on the capital side, that's another area where there's a little bit less exposure to direct federal grants than one might think. So I mean, direct from like FTA or other, it's basically the Lono grants and there's a grant for on-route charging. Beyond that, it's mainly like state pass-through grants and regional grants that we're getting, which there is likely a downstream impact, but not enough. There's not enough data to make a decision on that yet. So I'm sure those questions will come up either through the presentation or through the budget question and answers process.
And I would say some of the FHWA grants that we've been awarded, they have said, proceed, keep going. Because we have an agreement, we were awarded a SMART grant, but we did not have a project agreement in time and we have not received the project agreement. So we don't know if we'll actually get that funding.
That's like the 900K one.
Thank you, I appreciate it, Certainly, I mean, we'll have to talk as we do our CIP about, and I imagine that's your question about electrification specifically and sort of then what that means for, because we made a commitment to the community, but then are there other funding sources or how do we kind of approach that? Because we will have to start making some bus purchase, and I'm not remembering when our next purchase is. Are we still in that gap where we have kind of some years, or are we due to make our next?
I would have to look, I can't remember, but yes, we're in a little bit of a gap. The Lono funding that we have will maintain state of good repair for that year. But in the following years, we don't even have enough money to buy diesel buses.
27 is a big year.
Yeah, I was gonna say you and Ray probably talk a lot more about this.
There's a
So
lot. There's a lot of buses.
there's a lot of buses and there's not a lot of money. So yeah, it's going to be a very painful conversation, but we just don't have enough information right now to really work on. Okay, I will wrap up just by saying ridership is still killing it. And I just wanted to give you a brief moment to see, let me make sure my sound is on here, that this little video that I asked the team to put together to help tell the story around Dash, particularly as we go into the budget cycle. And I think the sound is on good. It hasn't been released yet, but you get a first look. just to get a sense of what it's like to ride, because the task here was to have something for people who aren't riding Dash to kind of see what's going on, so. And we really want to capture the experience for people who may not be out there or be able to get on Dash for various reasons, or potentially not at times when we're seeing peak crowding. And it's, as you all know, it's going to be continue to be a big part of the conversation. Peak crowding.
Can I just ask before we move on ridership, I know we're gonna have Camilla come up as a follow-up to her presentation. Josh, you and I had a little bit of discussion about specifically our peak period routes, the 102, 103, 104. I wanna just kind of, if we can track the ridership on that, because we're gonna see, we may already be seeing surges on those buses. And I think especially if we need to pivot some of our advocacy specifically for more resources for those routes as we support folks who are returning to office. I want to make sure that we're getting, regular data on that. So maybe if we could isolate those routes and just look at those at least through the summer on a month-to-month basis, because I'm sure, at my agency, which is located, sort of very close to Union Station, the building is built in the early 90s, has a lot more parking than they would have approved today under planning standards. But so when we were coming in less, basically anyone who wanted to park there could get parking, and now they're gonna have to, a lot more people are gonna find they're either gonna have to go to pay lots that are significantly, that's not subsidized, or go back to transit. So I think that story is gonna be repeated throughout the federal government. So we wanna make sure that we're not people into, like our 35 or what we saw with the 36 is like the everyday on the 104, because those folks and Bob would attest took a lot of reductions in service when we did the ATV, because we made assumptions about the future of what commuting would look like. We can move on to Camilla. I don't know if you had any more to present, or do you want to just take the questions that we had from last month?
Yeah, we ran short on time last time, and we promised to bring Camilla back to hear a little bit about her presentation and any feedback or common questions board members had.
I remember, I think Ajay, you had some questions we didn't get to. I think Jesse, if I remember correctly.
Please, by all means.
My question.
Sorry, directly in my big head's in the way.
Sorry. Well, I talked with Josh about this, but I was curious how our relationships are with our community partners. Like when you first joined Dash, I was big talks in the city council chambers during our pictures. And I wanted to make sure that we were constantly not just going to civic associations, but also like people who live in condos, also interacting with our PTAs in schools, because I'd gone to the touch-a-truck at William Ramsey and heard from PTA parents that they reached out to Dash, but no one got back to them. And although they never forwarded me the email traffic to confirm this, I think it's important for Dash to not work in a silo, but to have like constant communication with different community partners. So my question to you is, how are we updating that list and staying informed with our different community partners?
Yeah, the team has been working very hard to build better relationships with different, not just community organizations, but also city departments. So the few events that we had last year, so the ridership celebration and the Winter Wonderland, we invited city departments just to start building that relationship to help them promote like their initiatives, but also for them like do a lot of cross promotion. So both events had city departments representation. And we also reach out to different local vendors. That's also something that we're really working to support small businesses, local businesses. So we also had that at the Winter Wonderland. We had some local businesses. So just also like I said, cross promoting. We are working hard with ACPS, especially the Family and Community Engagement Center. So they do have a lot of parent liaisons in different schools. They also have 3 parent liaisons that are citywide that speak Amharic, Arabic, and Spanish. So we are doing a lot of work with them, making sure that our information goes in their newsletter. If we have to do specific outreach to a specific school, then we work directly with the parent liaison from that school. So that's how we've lately been working with ACPS, but definitely that's gonna be an ongoing thing of always reaching out, making sure that if there's anything we can do to help promote their stuff or initiatives, that we have that option, and also for them to do the same thing with us. And then for the civic associations, that's something that with Nathaniel, we want to make sure that the DAC is able to support, as some people might be parts of civic associations or other community organizations, that we can really reach out to the DAC members to get more support and be building more relationships with them.
So is there a central list that you're updating each year? Like, do you have an intern like that can update this? Because don't we have like a transit fellow or something?
We do have a
Each
list.
year.
This includes not just city departments and stuff like that, but we also have like a media list, like local media list, regional media list. So yes, we do have lists. We have a civic association list and community organizations as well.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're constantly updating that list each year. My second thing, part of your presentation, you showed a picture of parents and kids that came to Dash with that cute little Dash t-shirts. I wanted to have some more background on how that came to be.
We received a few calls and actually some DMs on social media about a few parents that are like Dash fans, and that the kids wanted to come here. And I believe that was the week of like spring break or something like that, that we did the tours during the weekday, like around 1 or 2 p.m. So that group of parents that had reached out, we connected with them, we invited them, and then that's how we also reach out to ACPS. We invited ACPS because a lot of kids were out, so giving them the opportunity to have an activity after school. So we did some cross promotion on ACPS as we think here.
Sure. Okay. My issue with that picture was there's nobody that looked like me in that picture. I didn't think it was like a good reflection of the Dash ridership. And I would hope if you do it again, that you extend your reach, not just rely upon ACPS to make sure that kids look like me are present and have the opportunity to tour Dash and get a t-shirt.
Yeah, we're always happy to, if there's a lot of interest to do more tours. Like this wasn't something that we do ongoing, it just, the opportunity came to be, so we can definitely do that more this year. And for this event, we did have some kids that attend ACPS, but they're part of a group called Liberty Promise, which is minority groups, and some of them
Familiar
were,
with Liberty's Promise, yes.
yeah, some of them were able to attend.
That's all my extra questions.
Jesse, did you had, it may be.
I
for a
could
month
not
ago, but I-
possibly imagine what my question
Okay.
was at the time. My own, one comment on the video, I can't even remember yesterday, it was a month ago. Camille, I really appreciated that we had the chance to see that video. I think it's really well done. I think it tells kind of a comprehensive, it gives a comprehensive impression of like what Dash is at this moment. I would encourage you to consider going forward to cut additional videos that are sort of like thematic throughout. Like, I think that one does a good job of capturing some of our success, some of our excitement, also some challenges. So I think the message ends up being a little bit more diffuse. It might be helpful to have a video that is sort of like all exciting, positive stuff that would make people want to ride Dash that haven't, and maybe a separate one that is mostly challenges, that's showing overcrowding and showing whatever, that has a kind of like clear call to action at the end for people to do something around those challenges, right? Like I said, I think this video is great, but I do think we might want to have video resources that are driving towards a clear aim, either trying to get more riders or get people to advocate for us.
Okay. Maybe do a series of videos for social media.
I have a non-committal thing, so when this is
Oh,
over.
okay. Anybody else for Camilla? And we appreciate you coming back, Kurt,
No,
tonight.
thanks for coming
We
back.
wanted to make sure you had enough time because you presented on some very important topics, you know, how we're reaching those in the community who either are big fans of Dash or those who are new to Dash. And so it's, we really appreciate you doing a lot with marketing initiatives to really reach broader audiences. And so it's really impressive to see. So,
Thank you.
all right. To Jessica.
I just want to respond, you, right before we got into this section, you sort of raised the point with Josh about the change in federal commuting patterns. And I'd actually like to suggest that like our next board meeting, that should be a strategic discussion item that we as the board talk about. It is a very good point, and we're only going to get one chance to make a first impression on these potential new commuters. Like, we know how quickly those patterns solidify. So I do think there's an important discussion to have about like, could we temporarily surge more resources on these lines to capture these commuters? And like, I don't want us to fail because like the buses don't come, they're overcrowded in the first like initial thing. I would rather show them that this service is available, that it is an option, and then solve the problems of having captured these new commuters. And I do think like, if that means that we need to talk through how that impacts our budget, if that needs, you know, what all of the things that might impact, I think that would be a pretty important strategic discussion for us to have next time.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I know there was some market, when Josh, you and I talked, I think there's some marketing outreach that we're doing related to awareness of service for people who are new riders, separate from this. Is that?
I mean, constantly.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to remember yesterday. I just remember that was something that you had said that we're working on to reach new riders potentially. Maybe it wasn't a specific initiative, but just that those things are already in process and are ongoing. But yeah, I think to Jesse's point, I mean, maybe the city overall, and I don't know if Hillary, if Tess is involved in discussions of traffic and commuting patterns changing overall, and is the city kind of looking at, you know, other issues with roads and signals and other, you know, so sort of like a holistic discussion within the city of what might have to ensure that people can move around at whatever mode they choose.
Yeah, we're paying attention to traffic. I'm hoping to get, VDOT has kind of permanent counters on the interstate at least, so you can see, we should be able to get real-time information on what the traffic flow is on the interstate, and that'll help us figure out, you know, where we need to look on our own streets. But to Jesse's point, I think that's a great point. I'm curious with the timing of changing schedules, if we just want to add additional service versus changing routes, is that something that has to take place in kind of those two, like February, August timeframes for the CBA? Or is it not about adding service, it's just about changing routes in those particular?
Typically, yes, it would need to, because that's additional work that would need to be bid on by the auditors through the CBA mandated process. So
And is there?
Emergency situations, perhaps we could get around that.
Yeah.
But it might be a little tricky.
I think the point is well made, that we should be looking at that, so we can take some of that with us and think about how we may discuss that with you guys as the board, and maybe answer some of those questions about what's even possible. Because we do have some pretty tough limitations we run up against in some cases.
Those who are new to the board may not remember that we had a contract with DOD for a long time to operate every 10-minute shuttle that they paid for from the, other customers could come, they had to pay back when we had fares, but from the Mark Center to King Street Metro during morning and afternoon peak. It went away when there was sort of return to work and the ridership was falling because people weren't coming in as often. I know Josh said you've reached out to DOD about potentially restarting that contract. At least when we talked a couple of weeks ago, there hadn't really been any movement on that. Is that still, Martin's nodding, so, but, you know, I think that's a lever too, but we may require, you know, maybe some support among other elected officials to kind of push that as a solution that would help us to move more people and potentially get some new riders. So, you know, that's something I think we could roll into that discussion too for next month, about that.
I mean, something that between the communication presentation and Jesse's point, pulling some, and the new riders, pulling some of that together is, I think, thank you. I feel like for new and casual riders, it's really important to understand, like, where does Dash take me? And, you know, Josh gets my transit photos from wherever I traveled. And I was just in London, and TFL is incredible at, like, where does this bus take me, right? And so to understand, like, when you get off the metro, what 3 neighborhoods will a route take you through? Or if you're in your neighborhood, which metro station will a route take you to? Like, those are like kind of the sort of major muscle movements of transit wayfinding that I feel like a lot of our local systems and systems generally in the US are not quite as advanced at. And so to capture new and casual riders, I think that would be a communication approach, like, you know, try to answer for the person, where does Dash take me?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think that's something too that we could talk to our Go Alex team about. I mean, that's their role, is to help people figure out how to get around the
Yeah.
city. And so that might be an initiative that they could potentially take on.
I think it's also hard for all of us that are like very close to this and involved and very informed, that there's things that we take for granted that I think we have to often remind ourselves. Just I have been on King Street and I've overheard a tourist being, a Dash bus will pull up, they're like, oh, don't get on that, wait for the free trolley. Right, and it's like, no, it's all free.
Oh, we're
right?
talking about that next.
Right,
That's
okay.
coming up.
So I do think it's
That's-
like we have to constantly remind ourselves that stuff.
Don't
we
you
take
want
for
to tell them
granted-
too? You're like, it's free.
Yeah, exactly.
They still don't believe you.
Right.
Like, it's so
They
frustrating.
won't, they'll still stand there and not
They'll
get on.
stand there like, okay.
But now we
We're
have
in
big
the same place.
stickers on the
Right.
buses, so they should know.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, that's a good segue actually to, Martin's gonna talk about King Street bus stop consolidation, so that way you can catch the Dash and the Old Town Circulator and the trolley at the same place.
And sorry to make you pause up there for a second, Martin. I just want to do a pulse check for everybody. So we strategically combined departmental update and strategic update into one presentation, which Martin did a great job putting together. But we are over time. With that said, I want to let the board decide if you'd still like to hear and have that conversation. I know that the desire is for that to be an opportunity for us to have more dialogue, and that may not be possible at the end of the meeting. So we're happy to move that. Martin does have a conflict. We'll rework the schedule. Think about it as he goes over this, and you all can make a decision. I'm just offering that we can be flexible about that. And I will also use that opportunity to remind you that the stockholders meeting, we pretty much believe is March 25th. And so you'll need, if everyone stays on the board, then we can just continue our sequence of presentations into the next year. We don't have to cram them all in at the end of this year. If we feel like we've fallen a little bit behind, that's perfectly fine. So I'll let Martin talk and then you all can decide.
Well, certainly, we're gonna go through this, yeah, we're gonna go through this item for sure.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. All right, good evening, Martin Barr, Director of Planning and Scheduling. This item is an informational item for the board, no action is required. But we wanted to provide an update on a project we're working on with the city to improve bus stops and bus service along King Street in Old Town. This is one of our busiest and most productive corridors, as we all know. We've been working on projects last few years, and this is the first kind of implementation phase towards some of the improvements we hope to make in terms of providing more accessibility and better amenities on this corridor. So effective this coming Sunday, we are actually going to be implementing a bus stop consolidation project where we reduce 6 stops and add 2 more in the hopes of establishing better stop spacing along this corridor. Our hope is that this will help us to achieve better service reliability, issues of bus bunching and buses falling behind this corridor. So hopefully that'll help out a little bit. It's the first step. It also paved the way for future improvements where we can have bus stops where we are able to implement accessibility improvements, amenities, perhaps with curb extensions and bulb outs, which not only make the buses ADA compliant, but also provide more room for things like shelters and benches. So this is kind of the first step towards all that. There's a lot more information in your packet. So I would just stop and say that we put up a bunch of flyers out here, both English and Spanish, and all the affected stops. We also, the marketing team was able to put together a website as well as do some social media posts. So hopefully we've informed the community sufficiently. I do have the diagram here that shows the exact specifics of the changes. I would just note that the black X's that show the stops that are being removed all have adjacent stops within one block on each direction. So hopefully the impact in additional walking is minimized. But happy to take any questions.
Just so my one, this all seems very like logical, it hangs together from my one just high level question is, explain to me why we seem to follow a every other street pattern through most of the western part of King Street. And then as we get down closer to City Hall, there's kind of this cluster of like every block.
Yeah.
Is that just due to, like, is there a structural reason for that?
Yes, every 2 blocks is kind of the target that we're going
Right.
for. That's typical in an urban environment where it's very walkable.
Right, sure,
very
totally.
patterned. The reason that City Hall in that area is where it is that there's still some moving pieces. Obviously, with Market Square
Yeah.
renovation is going to change a lot. We would consolidate probably the 2 stops. We have the one next to the parking garage and one in front of the plaza. We don't have one in the future when that project is done. We're also working on a potential bus bulb out near Fairfax Street that would remove the Royal location. So there's still some moving pieces there. That's the western half is more kind of established with these changes.
Yeah.
The eastern portion is still kind of in flux a little bit based on those changes at Market Square. Cool.
Can I add to, I think, I really like the new Pitt Street
Yeah.
stops because there's existing bus bulbs, but there wasn't a bus stop.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense to have the bus stops where you already have that additional sidewalk space for people and it makes the bus move faster.
Martin knows there used to be a bus stop there, and a certain board member complained when the Dash tried to remove it and was unsuccessful in saving it, so. And I appreciate the cap, I was worried that they wouldn't be able to get one, at least westbound because of the Capitol Bike Share Station, but I saw that you could flip it and make plenty of room there, so. And there is a second component to the project that's currently on hold, which is about future trolley service to the waterfront, potentially restoring that in routes. That's a much more complicated project because it's going to involve adjacent streets and in order to get there. So is that something that's still under consideration, or is that, I know it was pulled so we could do this.
Well, I think it's something that, there's gonna be big projects down at the waterfront and a lot of construction. So I think it's something that we need to figure out, how the streets are gonna be impacted with the construction. And then we would look at the trolley, but we wouldn't wanna do a pilot and then be closing streets down there and then not be able to implement it if it's successful, so.
So is the preference to continue on with Martin's presentation? We certainly can do what we did with Camilla and have Martin come back for Q&A next month, at least so we can get through the slides. And you may want to also then jot your question down so you can remember it when we come back next month. But yeah, we look forward to your presentation. So yeah,
Okay.
carry on.
I'll keep going. I'll try and keep it under 15 minutes, hopefully less than that. But I'll stick to the highlights. I do want to make sure that the team gets their proper recognition for all the hard work they do and the great things that we do as a department. But I'm just gonna jump right in here. This is the department presentation for the Department of Planning and Scheduling, hoping to talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, and why that work is so vitally important to Dash and the goals that we've set for ourselves as an agency. So I'm hoping it'll be informative and insightful. If you have questions, feedback, if you're curious about certain things, that's the reason I'm here. So please don't hesitate, either now or at a future meeting to let me know. And I'm happy to also stick around after the meeting if people want to chat a little bit. But just to start out with who we are, Department of Planning and Scheduling has 17 members, including myself. That makes us the 3rd biggest department at Dash behind operations and maintenance. We're a tightly knit group. We've been together for a number of years. Average age of 35 actually makes us the youngest department at Dash. However, we have a lot of experience. The average team member has 14 years in the industry in transit and 8 years with Dash. So a lot of dedication to transit. Also happy to report, or proud to report, that every single person in this picture has earned their CDL license, even though it's not required for a lot of them. And that provides some additional perspective on knowing how to drive a bus and what that's like.
Who's the best driver?
He's back there. So actually, while they're here, I'd love to introduce a couple of my guys here. Trevor Logan is our transit technology coordinator. He oversees our ITS, Transportation Systems Technology functions. Joined Dash a couple years ago from New York City MTA. Very happy to have him here. And then also Tristan Cunningham, many of you know, as our service planning manager. He's been with Dash for almost 22 years, give or take. If that sounds right. Hard to believe, I know, but he came to us as a junior. Came to Dash as a junior at TC Williams. So he's our service planning manager, oversees our service planning and scheduling functions. So I lean on these guys so much day in, day out to keep the lights on and make sure we're doing what we can do and be great. So we're really proud of the whole team, especially these guys. Also want to introduce the rest of the team up there. Top left is Eric Voigt. Next to him in the glasses is Eugene Wan. And then in the front, you got Justin in the black shirt and then AJ Perlin in the gray shirt. So really good team. Just a quick aside, I'm curious if anyone can identify where this picture was taken. The hint is that it's in Alexandria and accessible.
Lake
for-
Cook.
What was that?
No,
It was
what was
on
the parcel that
Eisenhower?
was just donated back to us from the?
Winkler
Yeah,
Preserve.
This is
Winkler.
with the reserve, yeah.
Closed every time I try to go there.
What bus do you take to get there?
Does anyone? The 35 on Beauregard, it'll get you about a quarter mile from here. You just go get off of Roanoke Avenue and walk quarter mile and you'll be right where we took this picture. So definitely check it out, especially in the fall or spring.
You don't get hit on sand.
Great hidden gem. Yes, same, exactly. Okay, so there's basically 3 areas that we focus on in our department. 1 is service planning, 2 is scheduling, and 3 is ITS technology. Service planning is the first one. It's kind of probably has the most visibility of this group because you guys are so distributed through our annual service planning process. But a lot goes into it. Starts with the network design, making sure we're serving the right communities. It includes the route alignments, what streets we're operating on, making sure that we can safely operate through the streets, make the turns, we can serve the stops. So we have to coordinate a lot with our operations team, our safety team, training, to make sure that we're operating a safe environment. Also includes service levels like frequency and spans. We have to make sure the frequencies are commensurate with ridership demand, with community needs, but also the span. Is it running early in the morning enough, late in the evening enough? Does it operate on weekends? So, and then obviously a lot of that is affected by budget and finance. So we have to coordinate with Edward and the rest of the team there. And then perhaps the biggest component is the buses and the operators. We have to make sure that we have enough buses and operators. We work closely with the maintenance team, as well as with Raymond and Edward and even Hillary and her team on our capital improvement program and Art as well, on our capital improvement program every 2 years, to make sure that our fleet replacement plan is properly funded, matches up with our CIP. And then also if there's any service expansions that we have buses in order to do those, whether that's by grants or other sources. And then operators, of course, we need to make sure we have enough bus drivers to operate the service that we want to. So we're always going back and forth with operations, HR, and training to make sure that our target number of operators matches up with our recruitment pipeline. A lot of other stuff that goes in the service plan, but I'll kind of just skip through that for now. The next area is scheduling. This is kind of the next step from service plan. You've got your service plan, which is kind of a little bit of pie in the sky. This is an idea of what we want to do. Scheduling is the step where we kind of operationalize. We develop what I kind of call a playbook for what the daily operation is. That starts with the timetables. You know, in your ride guide or on your website, you can see for every route, you know, each trip that's being taken, you know, where that bus is going to be at point A, B, C, D. And then you have to translate all that into blocking for bus assignments and run cutting for operators, and then go to take that through the operator video. So that's scheduling. I like the playbook example because we developed a playbook that's kind of based on not a perfect day, but a good day, a 72 degrees sunny, not too much traffic, not any big disruptions. But we rely heavily on operations and maintenance to make that plan work through all different circumstances. So we're really fortunate to have an operations team and a maintenance team that does a great job of doing that. And we have a great relationship with them. So there's a good feedback loop where if we need to make changes to the plan, if something's just not working or not based on practical situation, we can make the change to that playbook so that it works for everybody. The third area is the ITS program. ITS, the Intelligent Transportation Systems. This is really the technology that undergirds all of our operations and our customer-facing platforms. It starts with our CAD AVL system. This is a computer-aided dispatch / automated vehicle locator system. It tells us in real time, down to the second, where all of our buses are. And operations relies on that to maintain, to monitor service, manage it, make sure we're keeping on route, on time. And if there's any adjustments need to be made, they can do that with the CAD system and the support systems that support the CAD system. So the CAD system is kind of the brain. It feeds into a lot of other downstream systems that we rely on, that our operations teams rely on, as well as a lot of customer-facing platforms. So the destination signs on the buses, the onboard audio announcements, the real-time information that you have on your phone, all that is kind of coming through the CAD program. So that's kind of why it's so important. Going to skip ahead just in the interest of time a little bit here. I wanted to switch gears and talk about the DASH strategic plan. There are really 5 goals that come out of the ATSP that we adopted last year. They're also the same 5 goals from the board strategic plan. So I think you guys are probably very familiar with these. But I wanted to just briefly highlight each of these 5 goals and to spend a moment just talking about something that our department does for each of them that may be a little more under the radar, underappreciated, but still is very important towards advancing these goals. So the first one is system excellence. This is a pretty broad goal. I like to think about it in terms of service quality and making sure that we are holding ourselves to our standards of what we expect of ourselves and what the community expects of us. So my department is very well positioned to track that because we are responsible for reporting performance data to our federal and state partners. So FTA has the National Transit Database, NTD, and DRPT has their own state platform for reporting data. So on a weekly, monthly, annual basis, we are always reporting data to these agencies. So, but in addition to that, we also have a lot of internal KPIs that we like to keep that are much more detailed, much more granular, things like customer service, safety, on-time performance, missed trips, all those types of things. So my team is responsible for maintaining those stats, and we use it to populate these dashboards that you may have seen. These are our KPI dashboards. They are posted on the website as well as at the screens around our buildings so the employees can see them. We also, as a leadership team, look at them once a month just to identify any trends or anywhere where we're falling short or things that we need to address. So these are really helpful in terms of maintaining that system excellence. I will say this is an area that we are working to improve. I think we can do a little bit better. We're revamping these dashboards to make them a little more useful for individual departments and also to make them more visible and transparent for external stakeholders like yourselves. So hopefully there's more to come on this front, but it's an area that we're working on. The second goal is customer experience. This is a huge one. I think every decision that we make as a team in our department, we consider the impact on customers. We also have our own staff rides program. So everyone in our team is riding buses at least 3 or 4 times a month. We average over 20 rides per month as a team. So we get a lot of time out there talking to customers and seeing what they're experiencing. But for this goal, I just wanted to highlight destination signs. And Trevor Logan here is our destination sign guru. We are so fortunate to have him on the team. He is at least nationally renowned, if not, I guess, internationally renowned. He's gone to conferences and talking about how great our destination program is. Our destination sign program. And I highlight this because I think it's an underappreciated part of the customer experience. It's one that if it's not working well, it's very apparent. You risk getting on the wrong bus or in the wrong direction, or just could really mess up your day. So when you have clear destination signs that are legible, useful, the way that we have, that are always reliably working, the uptime is much higher than you'd see in other agencies, I think. So when you have that, I think it makes a big difference. And so for those that don't know, the destination sign is what you see on the exterior of the bus. It has the route information, the destination. It also has via points to a point that was made earlier about where we can take you. Those via points are very critical towards helping people understand where the bus actually goes aside from its final destination. So Trevor and his team have worked over the last year to identify a destination sign guidelines. It's kind of a thick document that provides best practices, not only for font sizes, colors, resolution, practices for how we identify the via points, but also just making sure it's very legible. He's worked with DAC, he's worked with riders who have visual impairments to make sure that what we're doing is helpful for everybody. So a lot of work has gone into that. So his team has done a great job. So huge credit to them on that. We also have PR codes that he does. That's a public relations code. You can see the Go Commanders ones there. We have things like have a nice day or don't forget to vote, things like that. So that's another great way that we can kind of interact with the community and make their experience just a little bit better.
So who picks that? Yes, I see them all the time, and I wondered, is there a process, like, do you have slogans? You're like, we're going to do this around election day, or we're going to do this when the Commanders might be in the Super Bowl or the playoffs or whatever, kind of thing. Or how do you choose?
When I came to Dash and reviewed their the current PR codes or public relations codes they're called, I redesigned it with every possible holiday in mind, every area team, or every event that Dash is involved in. I made sure that was instituted into the sign code so that at any given time, if we need to have a bus say something, it's already there. So we're pretty well stocked for what we need to do with the Dash bus at any given time.
And he'll provide that information to the operators for the relevant.
Yeah, like every month I'll put out a list of all the holidays that the operators know, okay, they can use this code on this day to say, in this case, Happy Black History Month or Happy Valentine's Day. That information is readily available to all of our operators.
So the operator can then pick from the list of approved codes what they want to do on that bus. So that's why you see different things. Some buses don't have anything at all. Some are sending a message.
Totally not operator discretion to actually use the PR codes, but we make it available, the information available to each operator.
Okay. I've always wondered, because it's always seemed just somewhat serendipitous that you would see, but there's a lot of planning and coordination that goes into it. It's cool to know.
I know we want to save most of the discussion for a future meeting, but could we circle back at some point about marketing applications with that and particularly like viral marketing?
Marketing our own system?
I'm just, for instance, I'm looking at the Commanders one and I'm thinking like, you know, could we approach the Washington Nationals and say, we would do a sign that the bus flashes Nationals win after each win for, you know, whatever, the 15 minutes after it happens, would that have value to them? And what would they pay for that? Like, have we explored opportunities like that?
Yeah, I could, so I was gonna chime in and just say, it's always amazed me at how difficult it is to keep these systems running, so kudos to Trevor. And I think he knows this, because I said, I mean, one of my early jobs in my career was doing what he does. And they were physical flip dot signs back then, there weren't LEDs like there are now, and those things were great. I do remember one mantra that was always put in my head when these even standards nationally from the ADA came out, which is that the primary purpose of these signs is for informing the customer of how to use the system and where it's going. To your point, I think systems throughout the years have probably tried that a little bit, but we'll look into it. I'm not gonna say no, but I will say that I can easily answer that one in the sense that from an industry perspective, it's considered best practice to keep the sign focused entirely on the service, with the PR code being the driver's one little discretionary thing that they can do for fun. And unfortunately, the technology does not allow us to enforce a PR, does it now?
Not yet.
Not yet. And so PR, people think, I used to think you just typed it in, but you don't, it's codes. The destinations themselves are controlled by the CAT AVL system automatically, but we don't have the ability to control or override what a PR message is displayed. So got it. It always drove me crazy when someone would have good morning on the bus and it was 11 o'clock at night.
Okay. These goals.
Right.
Cool,
So
thank you.
just so to what you're just saying, the sign industry is ever changing.
Yeah.
I was notified actually a couple of weeks ago that one of our current sign vendors has come out with a new super high res sign. It's almost like your LED TV that we actually will be demoing probably within the next month. And I'll be working with Camilla on some of the marketing that could be done with that particular sign. So
cool.
Once we get it, bring Dak in and you guys and take a look at it and see what it's all about.
All right, well, I'll keep moving here. Next up is the environmental stewardship. I'll quickly hit on this one. This is tied into the city's Eco-City initiative. I think one of the priorities from that initiative was to make special events in the city more sustainable. You know, the city has so many events these days. I think our team counted up for last year, we had at least 30 events where Dash had to kind of detour or make some sort of service adjustment based on a parade or a 5K or something like that. So we've been working really hard to get into the process, the special event planning process earlier, so that we can kind of work with them to make their plan a little less, have a little less impact on our riders, but also if there are ways that we can buy a shuttle or something, you know, certainly that's something we're willing to do. But our team, especially Tristan, and I'll give a shout out to Eric and Eugene, have done a great job in the last 2 years of mitigating the passenger impact of these. We used to not do very much for these, but now every time we have an event, we have a detour plan that's worked out with operations well in advance. We work with marketing, get flyers up and notify riders. So there's everybody's aware of the impact. And so we really minimize the impact because everyone loves the parades and all the events in Alexandria, but they do have an impact on our riders. So we want to make sure we know. Yeah.
Have you guys looked into, so I know that we have like a Ways for Cities partnership. And so if we're gonna do a road closure or detour or something, we can just go into our portal and put it in there. So it's routing traffic. I don't know if they have a transit feature, but since transit is part of Google and the routing, we could certainly get you guys a login, but it might be worth checking just as you're thinking about event planning, because it's really easy to go in there. And I don't know if they'd let you just like alter your routes.
Okay, well, we will look into that. I know we've tried to have our CAT AVL system do that, but have not yet been successful in terms of creating detours on the fly that will feed into customer facing information. So that's definitely something that we will take a look at. All right, and then the last two goals, I kind of combine those because I think they're pretty related as far as our scheduling goes, but workplace excellence and fiscal responsibility, not necessarily directly connected at first, but when we look at our scheduling practices, we are, as a team, especially Tristan and his team, are directly responsible for setting the schedules that the operators go through each day on a minute by minute basis, what they're doing. You know, how much time they have to get from point A to point B, how much time they have for layovers, what their full work day looks like, and then what their whole work week looks like. So we have a lot of dials and knobs that we can, and levers that we can pull that affect how they go through their day and the comfort that they go through their day, I will say. So that is one aspect of what we do. But then we also have fiscal responsibility, because if we can take that, you know, a little too far, I mean, certainly we want to provide comforts. We have, you know, federal regulations on, you know, short rest and things like that. But we also need to be responsible for how we're spending our budget. So we work really hard to find a good balance between these two goals. And I will not go too deep into these. Like, you know, Josh would love to nerd out on run cutting, I'm sure. We could be here all night, but we have a lot of different things that we do in terms of putting together the runs. The runs are what the operator does. If you think about a timetable, you know, you've got all these trips, and if you were to take each of those trips and staple them to another trip for a full day, 20 hours, that would be what a bus does, called a block. And then if you were to cut that block into workable assignments, 8-hour blocks, that's what a run, which is what an operator does. So we are basically responsible for putting those together. We have software that does it for us. We don't have to use scissors like they used to. And it's very advanced, so it's able to optimize these runs, these blocks. But the point I'm making is that we are able to do things that make the workplace a better place because of our scheduling practices. A couple examples, about 5 years ago, we had 33 split runs on a typical day. Split shifts, as you guys know, are not great for operators. They have to come in the morning, then have a period in between, and then a PM shift. We are now down to 12. Yep. So we cut that by 67%. Similarly, we've tried new things. When we first were here, you know, I'd say 5 years ago, there were mostly just 8-hour runs with 5 days a week. Experimented with 10-4s. So, you know, you get 3 days off, you work 4 days a week, but work 10 hours on those days. I think some of the operators were a little skeptical at first, but they love them now. We have down. Yes, they're looking for them. Yes, they're looking for them, especially a lot of the seniors. Yeah. So that's been very successful. And then an extra board. Probably know what an extra board. An extra board is someone who comes in, they don't really know what they're going to do. They're just showing up, and they aren't really able to have necessarily a life outside transit because they always have to be ready to report if there's people that are come up sick, or if there's vacations or whatever. They kind of fill in the work as needed. So previously they haven't really been able to know when they're going to work, but we've made some adjustments in the last couple of years where we now have an AM PM extra board. So you're either on the AM shift or the PM shift. You know what part of the day you're going to be working. And then we also have changed recently. We're trying something where you get the kind of guaranteed days off. Previously it was kind of like you kind of work when we need you, but you do get occasional day off. You just don't know when it's going to come necessarily. But we're now changing that so they know when their days off are coming. So that's very helpful, especially for retention for younger operators, less senior operators, because they usually do it up on the board, and that can be very difficult, and that sometimes discourages them from staying. So those are some things that we're doing. And then of course, in terms of fiscal responsibility, we're always looking for new efficiencies. We do a great job. I think we squeeze a lot out of what the hours that we have through practices like interlining and just generally using software like which helps us kind of optimize a lot of the practices we do. So I think we do a good job of finding a balance between those two things. This is the last slide here. I'm not going to focus too much, but I did want to highlight some of our priorities in 2025. We have our ATSP update, which is going to be coming to the board in draft form next month. So looking forward to that. Josh mentioned the ACPS coordination. We also want to continue our bus stop improvements, build on what we've done in the last couple of years. And like I mentioned, the KPI dashboards, we're working on that as well. I have some targets here. These are some of the things that we're going to be monitoring as we go through 2025. But that concludes my slides. Happy to take any other questions or wrap it up.
I just want to echo, I've said this before, the special events detours has really gotten so much better. I mean, at the GW parade, seeing pop-up bus stops along Pitt Street where the trolley and the buses will turn, and then signs along Princess Street. I mean, it just, you know, we're transporting this many people. We've got folks who are going to rely on us whether there's a special event going on or not. And so I know it's a lot. I mean, you look at those, you said that's a lot of time that was spent both by your team as well as operations to get those in place. But it means a lot to the people who rely on the buses, because I know as someone who lived in Old Town and was sometimes trying to travel during a special event, I didn't know what street the bus was going to turn on. I didn't know if I could figure that out. Do I just stand on any street corner and wave at the bus, or were there designated places where it's going to stop? So I just keep doing what you're doing there because it really, you're really helping people continue to be able to use transit as a solution no matter what's going on in the neighborhood around. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
I would just like to give 2 shout outs to Martin while he's at the podium. One is that for as long as I've been at Dash, he always seems to get crammed in at the end of the board meeting. I don't know if you've noticed, but he talks really fast now. I don't know if that's been as a result of
PTSD.
Of PTSD. So sorry that we ran over this evening, but thank you all for tuning in during his presentation because I think he and the team worked hard to prepare it. And I also wanted to recognize him that he was recently admitted to the Eno Center for Transportation's Transportation Senior Executive Program. This is a pretty competitive program here. Actually, it's going to take place in Alexandria, I guess. But it requires applications and letters of reference and whatnot. I took part in this back in 2015, something like that. And some of my classmates, one of them is the CEO of LA Metro now. One of them is the CEO of Metra in Chicago. So it is a very prestigious program that really gives people a great opportunity to learn really about what it means to be a senior executive in transit. So I just wanted to give him that kudos.
Thank you, Josh.
Congratulations.
We have come to the end of our agenda. Josh, thank you for reminding me about the stockholders meeting. It's it's like Swiss cheese these days. Just to kind of follow up on that. So March 25th, likely, right?
We're
still waiting on final confirmation.
We feel like it's as confirmed as we can get a confirmation right now.
Under our bylaws, that is the final date that the city could hold it and still be in compliance with our bylaws because we allow it during the first quarter of the year.
But yeah, I mean, we've gotten.
We had put it on that day because we thought Lono would come out and we could get it, we would do that at the same time, but then the NOFO never came out.
All right, so we're still gonna do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll do it.
But that does mean because we do appoint board members to 1-year terms that, we're preparing the documents right now that will go up for the stockholders meeting. Josh explained that they're due almost a month in advance of the meeting. So that means we have to send it up, I think, next week. So we are assuming all of you want to continue in your board service, but if anyone is retiring from the board, to please let Beth and me know by the 24th. Is that the date?
That's the due date, I think.
Oh, the 24th is the due date. Okay, so
maybe like 2 days before that. I mean,
okay, 22nd. If you're retiring and you want to not be included in the slate, just let us know. I hope all of you will continue serving. I very much enjoy serving with this board, but just we don't want to put you on the slate of board members if you're stepping down. We'll provide more information about attending and participating in the session because I hope many of you will be able to make it. Thank you for being here tonight. And just in terms of scheduling of meetings, one of the things Josh and I talked about, we have this 2-hour format, but when we have an executive session on the meeting, assume a 2.5-hour format because we're going to still have the other things that we need to do. So just for planning in future. So when you see that on the agenda, just know we'll probably be here another 30 minutes on top of that. Thanks for your participation tonight. Next board meeting, March 12th, 5:30 p.m. will be at City Hall. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Jesse, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Art, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, good night.
You don't need a motion. No, you just say, we've come to the end of the agenda. But if you didn't, then you need a motion. It's just like I was on. Hey, you got a problem?